their wagons are getting in and getting out. Anybody got any
Particularly
announcements you want to make? New grandchildren, broken car, anything, flat tire, whatever you want to
or
talk
any
about.
events you know about that
There you go.
we might not know about for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, I just left Indivisible had their little thing. It's basically a Democratic Party thing up by the not the senior center, but across the way, Beresford Recreation Center. And they were having a discussion on how to get the vote out, and they were salivating at the chance of taking over the House and the Senate, which I hope we do, of course, but never say never or ever. I see a hand up, Miss Laura. What
Yes.
you got there?
Well,
Yeah,
because I just saw something about East Palo Alto,
yeah.
which Eton is a city in San Mateo. Is it San Mateo County? No, it's
Yeah,
not.
it
It's
is.
San
Yeah.
and they were talking about something to say something about Zionism in putting out some kind of statement. But there's we're connecting. DSA is connecting with the Yucca and other organizations to try to stop that at city council. So
Okay, well, you kind of got us lost there on what the
Yeah, I'm
issue
not
is.
sure.
I'll tell you what the issue is. Hold on. I'll tell
Okay.
you exactly. In
I know they
fact,
had a,
I'll share it in chat in a
Okay.
few minutes.
okay. Do you want to make Ron co-host or me co-host in case we got to let people in or out or what have
Okay.
you? Yeah.
It'll only take a
Or
second,
you,
but
you know,
yeah,
occasionally you get
sure.
called away.
I should make you co-host anyway, Ron.
Okay. Oh, we got 16 people. That's a nice start here. Well, hopefully one or two more will roll in.
Yeah, I was hoping for a couple of the folks from DSA. They said,
Here.
Well, do they know? They do know the time because they
yeah,
probably may not have our access to our web.
I gave it and
Oh,
I put it in the Discord channel.
thank you. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay.
And that's when I saw this other notification. And let's see. Oh, here it is.
Well, I know East Palo Alto was very happy. They had
I was
they were
surprised.
celebrating a new event center over there or something, and they had a Pete Escovedo, I think, was doing the honors.
I was surprised to hear that from about East Palo Alto. Stop East Palo Alto Zionist proclamation. And I'm going to see if I can
What they're
find
suggesting
it's Stop
is
East Palo Alto
they're
from
looking,
adopting Zionist
they're
proclamation
suggesting this. I
labeling
don't know if it'll work.
Palestinian.
Hold it,
And
hold
then
it, hold it.
you,
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Somebody's forgot to
Somebody needs
mute.
to mute yourself.
Cheryl Hilton, please mute.
Mute. Stop talking.
Oh, well, I want to be
One or the other.
well-mannered. No,
No,
I'm sure
no,
it's
you're great. I can't see it.
sure it's accidental. Okay.
Very.
There's Rob.
Okay.
So yeah, and it's they're wanting to the proclamation labeling Palestinian free speech as anti-Semitic.
Oh,
Uh,
brother.
Yes, from East Palo Alto.
I'm
I was
surprised.
just
Yeah.
absolutely surprised.
I'm
But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of pushback from that.
I don't think
I would
so.
hope so.
You.
At least get the ACLU to weigh in on it. They might listen to them.
Yeah.
Or maybe that group that used to always meet for protest at Embarcadero. What was the
Well,
name of that group, Mike? I forget all the names now.
Embarcadero.
Yeah, the shopping center. We used to protest there for a while in favor of
Well, that was
Palestine.
Wilf.
Wilf, was it? Okay. No,
Okay.
but there was a Palestinian group too.
Oh, I don't know. I
Young
haven't
woman.
been there anytime.
Oh, they never gave us a name. They never gave us a
Oh, they didn't come up with the name. That's
Palestinian mothers. They never
Vigil
organized
for
themselves.
Gaza.
okay.
Oh, Vigil. Oh, that's down there. Oh, okay. Now you embark there.
It's
Now you
near
ring.
Vigil for
Dong,
Gaza.
dong. There you go.
It's near
Yeah,
East Palo Alto.
yeah. Yazan. I forget his last
Yes,
name.
she's on.
Yeah.
And the woman that
Very,
organized
very
them.
nice fella. Yeah. And
Michelle.
Michelle. There you go.
Shall we
Well, we have
begin?
20 happy folks here, so I want to welcome everyone. And we're about 2 hours a little earlier than we usually are. And we were discussing is good, is it bad? And some people said they're happy with others. They had to tear themselves away from the dinner table. So generally we're at 7 o'clock. And we had done a poll years back, and we found that seemed to be about the best time of the week where people are kind of are calming down and got things out of the way and did the laundry and what have you. But so 7 o'clock Sunday is generally our favorite time to aim for it. So okay, Ron's going to give us
Yeah,
our welcome to our new speaker, and then we'll go from there.
Our speaker's muted.
That's
that's all right.
okay.
But
He's not
Okay.
allowed.
Well, thank you all for coming. So we're all watching the evolution of this war on Iran by the US and Israel, and we still wonder what Donald Trump's end game could be. He says the US has won. He says the US is close to winning. He calls for keeping Iran from having a nuclear weapon. He calls for regime change. He starts a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and then for Iran to stop blocking the strait. And some of us ask, what will it be tomorrow or today or whenever?
This
So
afternoon.
Etan Mabourakh, organizing manager, is the organizing manager for the National Iranian American Council. He has worked with National Peace Action in Action webinars, which we have publicized from time to time. So he also asks those kinds of questions, and then he sets to work on how to meet whatever moment is taking place. Eton stays preoccupied with organizing and with campaign strategy and how to communicate the plan as widely and as quickly as possible. And one result is to bring activists like us together with the Iranian American community in some kind of solidarity. And in a situation like this, we're trying to preserve what integrity is left remaining for the U.S. while trying to help with the survival and well-being of Iran and its people. In this time of war, everyone can benefit from these strategies and tactics, and we are happy and lucky to have Etan with us to talk about some of this. So welcome, Etan Mubarak.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much for having me on. And Ron, how long should I talk for? I just want to clarify that if that's okay.
Oh,
So your
let's
voice
see.
gives out, I guess.
When people ask, um,
Okay.
I tend to say maybe 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay.
But you kind of have, you know what works best for you. So, and
Okay.
then we'll have some time on question and answer, of course, and whatever kind of thing you want to tell us to do as far as asks and things like that.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's nice. It's nice to have time. Honestly, I appreciate it. Well, that was a very nice introduction, and I want to thank you all for organizing with Peace Action. Peace Action consistently has been the most incredible ally for us as a national staff and for so many of our local chapters. I'd love to also follow up and try to connect y'all with our California chapter. They're growing, and they're a wonderful group of people. NIAC's core staff is actually quite small, but our national reach and political power is due to ordinary people who just choose to volunteer and get involved and meet with their representatives and organize events and campaign and not let up on issues that we can't afford to let up on right now. But um, yes, I'm Iranian American and I've worked for NIAC for 5 years, and I have a phone and email full of Iranian Americans who are all trying to move the ball forward and organize right now. But I'll try and take just the latest update for you all of how my organization, how we are understanding the situation, because if you're just paying attention to what Trump says, you're very likely to be confused. And I think there are some basic facts of the situation that we have to stare down. And as activists, we could play a really crucial role in facilitating the necessary political pressure to bring this thing to an end and to constrain the options for Trump and Congress. So, um, Ron said it pretty well. The current situation, ceasefire, as it's called, I would not call it a ceasefire. A blockade is an act of war. And the ceasefire of sorts of where we're at is one that neither side fully trusts. Um, Diplomatic proposals that we have made have not been met with direct engagement. Vance famously canceling his trip to Islamabad, and when asked about it, said, "Well, we didn't like what the Iranian terms. We didn't agree with the Iranians didn't agree to our terms," and that is literally not diplomacy. That the practice of diplomacy is one that should come with patience and empathy and listening, and that is not what we're seeing. And frankly, my estimation personally, and the estimation of a lot of analysts that I respect, is that we very soon could return to a more heightened state of warfare, and that Trump doesn't understand the situation he's in and is caught in an escalation trap where he is his only options really are to give concessions at the negotiating table or continue to choose to escalate. And his latest statements, as of yesterday, I believe, or as of today, actually, I was reading that Trump was quoted saying uh, that Iran has not yet paid a big enough price for this war, and that he's keeping the option open of a return to active strikes. Now, on the first day of this war, we did bomb the Minab Elementary School in a double tap strike. Um, and it was one of many attacks on civilian infrastructure that we've seen now since February 28th. There have been reported bombings of multiple schools, universities, bridges, oil depots, dozens of UNESCO culturally protected World Heritage sites, a synagogue in Tehran. I'm Jewish. My dad is an Iranian Jew. We went to synagogue in Tehran, and we bombed a synagogue in Tehran. And Hegseth, if you watched his recent congressional hearing, which I would encourage some to do, sort of echoes this mantra and he seems, pretty utterly incapable of telling the president no or telling the president what he needs to hear, and rather tells him what he wants to hear, consistently. But to focus back in on, I think, the state of play right now, the gaps between these two sides continue to widen, and as well, there are multiple indicators of this. So one being that talks have stalled and military posturing continues on both sides. Also, as of this weekend, I read that the State Department fast-tracked arms deals valued at about $8.5 billion to a number of Middle East partners. I can share the New York Times article for you all if you'd like to see. But that was to Israel and the UAE, and Kuwait, Qatar, all countries where we've held bases and where the Iranians have also attacked in retaliation. So it's quite safe to say this is not a ceasefire, and that there are extreme worries of a return to kinetic action on top of the geopolitical, economic factors, right, that are we are now feeling from the continued blockage of the strait, reflected in gas prices and in the cost of fertilizer. There's actually been a number of interviews recently from More Perfect Union of uh, farmers in the Midwest talking about how the cost of diesel is affecting their day to day. And I've talked with friends who are union organizers who've been trying to build more of those bridges in the anti-war movement broadly with communities that are now feeling the effects of this. So this is an extreme situation, and Trump c continues to bluntly say that he's not satisfied with the Iranian proposal. The Iranians submitted a proposal on Thursday of last week, to Pakistan, who's the designated one of the designated mediators. The full contents of the proposal are not public, but it was been reported that the Iranians asked for um, a framework of a three-stage winding down of the war, starting by ending the war, then pursuing to negotiations over the strait, and then leaving the nuclear talks as the last issue. That is likely what has confused and caused Trump to be upset. Trump's main one of the many shifting justifications for the war is that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, um, despite there being no evidence of Iran having a nuclear weapon, especially after Trump claimed he had obliterated Iran's nuclear program last June. And the Omani foreign minister, just before this most recent war, being on record saying that the Iranians were willing to give up all of their nuclear material in an agreement that surpassed that of the JCPOA, which Obama negotiated to successfully prevent the Iranians from having a nuclear weapon without going to war, and in fact, to great benefit of the Iranian people and America. Um, our organization and Peace Action were very supportive of the JCPOA, and I am still, in spite of everything we've seen, still a firm advocate for diplomacy in good faith, which it remains to be seen if we'll see from this administration. So the answer that we've been reaching to as a organization, as a community, is to create political pressure here to stop the war in the most maximum sense. How can we stop the war? And the mechanisms we've identified for that are that Congress can stop the war with the passage of a war powers resolution. There have been now many votes in both the House and the Senate on that on a war powers resolution. It has not passed, but it has gotten closer and closer with each respective vote. This past week, Susan Collins from Maine flipped as the first domino of swing senators on the Senate war powers resolution, which was encouraging to me, albeit not satisfactory. Um, and in the House, I'm based in New York, and so our New York chapter, before the House went on recess, had been asking Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries to introduce a war powers resolution. He did not at that time, which would have been a good time to do it. And we then held an accountability press conference in front of his office with a number of constituents, members of Peace Action New York, and others, calling him out for that. And since then, likely for, I'll speculate, likely for political reasons, but nonetheless, Hakeem Jeffries and the Democratic leadership in the House has held a war powers vote, and it just missed by one vote. It was 213 to 214, and that one swing vote was from Democratic Representative Jared Golden from Maine, who's unfortunately not seeking re-election. So it's a bit difficult to organize accountability measures for him, although we are still trying. I have people in Maine who are emailing and calling his office. And funny enough, last week, Jared Golden and Josh Gottheimer, famously very pro-Israel, very hawkish Democrats, actually sponsored their own war powers resolution. And we had expected it to get to the floor, but for some reason it did not. So we are continuing to press on that issue, and we are very, very, very close. And I would ask that you all continue to speak about congressional war powers and take solace in the fact that when congressional war powers bills have been passed in previous years and with respect to previous military campaigns, they have changed the calculus of the president, including President Trump in Venezuela and in Yemen in 2019. So where we had war powers resolutions passed in Congress. So that's one mechanism that we are pushing hard for and going to continue to push hard for. And there are several others I'll speak about as well. And as of Friday, we had just to sort of try to close the book on the war powers point. Friday, we crossed 60 days since President Trump formally notified Congress of military operations, beginning on February 28th. And under the War Powers Resolution, the president is required to terminate unauthorized military operations within 60 days unless Congress continues their authorization. Uh, and Secretary of War Hegseth argued that the 60-day clock has been paused by the ceasefire, a position that Democratic Senator Tim Kaine and legal scholars, others, have rejected. And there have been a number of Republican lawmakers who are on record saying, after the 60 days, I'm not in favor of it. So the war powers fight is ongoing. And I would encourage you all to continue advocating for what is written in our Constitution, that the American people and Congress decide when we go to war, not a rogue single man. Um, so that's one point. Additionally, another point of political pressure that is upcoming is the supplemental funding package, right? There have been reports in the last few months that the Pentagon will be seeking additional money to fund this war. Some analysts say it's costing roughly $1 billion per day, especially when you account for munitions and bases and deployment of our ships and aircraft carriers and needed replenishment of munitions and damage to our bases, which is the reporting has been is starting to come out more and more. And Hegseth seemingly did not speak and has not acknowledged that fact. But we have had significant damage to our bases. We have lost 13 troops, and we have had dozens and dozens of troops injured, especially in an attack on a makeshift base in Kuwait initially, which did not have the necessary aerial defense in place to protect against such an attack. So, all that being said, they're going to need more money for this. And the administration is going to put forth a supplemental funding request soon. And it's very important that we advocate against such a request, that members of Congress go on record and get asked frequently about, do you support funding the supplemental? And the answer should be a clear hell no. That's the answer you want to hear. And there are Senator Van Hollen, uh, there's a number of examples of lawmakers who just clearly take that stance. And then that puts Trump in a difficult position, forces him to really think about ending the war if he can't get more money to spend on it. So that's another pressure point that I would ask you to push on and think about and talk to your friends and and lawmakers about. I'm going to share a fun resource on that in the chat. This is something that several people have sent to me. It's an active Iran cost ticker. Hegseth was asked how much is the war costing. He said $25 billion under oath. That does not seem accurate to me. This is quite a detailed breakdown. This link offers a pretty detailed breakdown of the costs of this war, um, including gas prices, touches on Lebanon, and other estimates. So take a look at it, play around. I would encourage that. The next pressure point of advocacy that I would encourage you to think about is accountability for apparent war crimes. Because as Americans, I think it's for our own dignity and for faith in our rule of law and democracy. I think it's very important people talk about this openly. There have been a number of war crimes committed, including on the very first day of this war, again with the bombing of that Minab school, which has now been very clearly come out that it was our missiles, our Tomahawk missiles that did that, and it was a double tap strike. Um, it's horrific. There's also questions about the use of AI in these decisions and in the creation of target lists and no strike lists. And particularly with that example, the question must be raised because it was very clear if you looked on Google Maps for the last several years that that was an elementary school. At one point, 10 years ago, it was an IRGC base and it was close in proximity to an IRGC base. However, it's very clear if the research was done that one could see that this is a school and not a legitimate military target. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of former head of Pentagon Civilian Protection, Wes Bryant, who is a whistleblower who has gone on several news programs, including CNN, Christiane Amanpour, and others, who was a member of the Center for Civilian Protections in the Pentagon. That center was created through a law written by uh, New Jersey Senator Andy Kim and Representative Sarah Jacobs, who's out there in California. She's great. Um, they created the center, and Hegseth did away with it earlier last year, I believe. And this gentleman has gone on several news programs openly saying that if he was just allowed to keep doing his job, we may have not have struck that school. That and because there are members of our military who just want to do their job correctly and don't want to commit war crimes. So that is a critical issue, and that is something that should be pressed hard to our lawmakers. There was a letter sent about this very issue. I'm sorry, Crow. Forgive me. I'm just going to pull it up for you and share that as well. But there was a
Also, if
letter
you need a
here.
time to break, for your voice to recover, just let us know. We can go to Q&A and among ourselves. I just feel bad having you.
No, it was my choice. I was I
I
was very happy today, actually. I yelled in
well,
joy because my team had a rare win. But so I'm going to here's the letter. Here's a press release from Representative Jason Crow about that letter. And it asked very specific questions to Secretary Hegseth uh, about this strike. It gave him a deadline of March 20th to provide answers, and he has not done so,
Course not.
unsurprisingly. But there is an appetite in Congress and among the American people to ask questions about our processes here and where is the accountability going to be felt. Uh, Congresswoman Ansari also introduced articles of impeachment for Secretary Hegseth, tied to this issue. So I would encourage you to keep talking about this, pressing it, and if anyone wants to go down a rabbit hole, there's a particular there's something called Project Maven. Project Maven is the official Pentagon program for using AI in operations. And I have a lot of questions about that program. I just as an American taxpayer, born and raised here, I feel that we should always have a human being checking our strike lists and no strike lists, and that our service members um, should be in full control over these monumental decisions, and no leader such as Hegseth should be able to punt them off and blame an AI weapons system. So I would encourage you to keep thinking about that issue and pressing on it, asking what's next from your lawmakers. What are you doing next? And and to speak openly about it. I mean, frankly, it's not something we should shy away from as Americans. We should own that and speak about it and call for accountability, firm accountability on apparent war crimes. And additionally, the attacks on civilian infrastructure in Iran have been extreme and significant and are another possible um, step up in the escalation ladder that could make this a whole lot worse. There have been strikes on oil depots in Iran, um, but there are more targets that could be hit, and the Iranians have openly said that they will then retaliate by striking oil facilities and water treatment facilities in many of these Gulf countries. And that would represent uh, an extreme escalation. Many of the people in these Gulf countries rely on water desalination plants to live, and the Iranians also rely on oil depots and their own water desalination plants. Iran has historically suffered in recent years extreme drought and water crises. So that is another step up that we could see, which would also be a very clear war crime and would dramatically hike up the risks of regional escalation beyond what we are currently seeing. Um, and this is something we really should be talking about. We should be talking about it with our lawmakers. People are asking are noticing this war here in America. They should know that it can get a whole lot worse and threaten um, our allied relationships with a number of these Gulf countries in really extreme ways. So I would impress the general issue of war crimes to be talked about, but also these specific accountability measures that you can be talking about with your neighbors, with your lawmakers, especially, um, and speaking firmly about the. Uh, perhaps we could pause there, and if anyone wants to ask questions, I have some other thoughts and issues I'd like to raise, but those are some heavy ones.
Which may arise as the questions come up and the comments and so forth. So what I'll say about the questions, it's best if you go to the raised hand mode, then at the bottom of your screen, should be the case with all of you, there is a react icon. When you hit that, you'll see a raised hand icon, and you click that, and then your hand will be raised, and we'll know, as is the case with Analoy and Teresa, um, that it's time to call on you. And then after you're finished, you can lower your hand the same way because it's sitting right there. And so we will try to limit questions or comments or whatever you have to say to about a minute. We'll see how things are going. And please, just one question or comment at a time. If you have something else on your mind, let the next person, if there is a next person,
Oh, and Ron, I
mention.
forgot to mention something. I remembered what I forgot.
Okay.
And Annalie and Annalie and Teresa, we'll go to you in just a moment. But I don't want to forget this, that in recent weeks we also saw a historic vote in the Senate to on Senator Bernie Sanders' joint resolutions of disapproval, the bills to block uh, bombs and bulldozers to Israel.
Right.
And I've monitored these votes over the last several years. We've advocated for them. Um, we had initially seen them at about 13, then 19, then 27, but I did not expect 40 senators to vote for these. And that is something that peace activists and folks here should take some pride in
Yeah.
and continue to press, because those same bombs are being used to bomb Iran. They're being used to bomb Lebanon and displace a million people there. And the bulldozers are being used, they were used to kill Rachel Corrie, American activists, and are being used to demolish homes in the West Bank. So I would also include advocacy for the JRDs, in these discussions, including war powers, war crimes investigations, and so forth.
Great. Okay, so let's hear from Anna Loy.
Okay. Boy, I have so many questions for you, Etan. Believe me, but I'll start off with this one and then maybe get back in line. Um, as I understand, the Khomeini, I think was the one that we assassinated, had issued a fatwa against Iran producing a nuclear weapon. And I am curious about whether that is true, number one. And number two, now that he's been assassinated, does that fatwa hold?
Well, to
And
the
also, I will say, um, as long as the United States and other major powers have nuclear weapons, I think it's wrong to tell other countries that they can't have them. But anyway, that's so the fatwa
Yeah.
is my main question now.
Well, to your first question, yes, um, Khamenei did issue a fatwa, I believe, in 2003 against Iran pursuing nuclear weapons. They they have enriched uranium,
Right.
in that time.
And
However, Iran is a signatory to the NPT, the Non-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, which allows sovereign countries to enrich uranium. The Iranians, during the time of the JCPOA, allowed had minimally enriched stockpiles and allowed for unprecedented monitoring of their program. But now, as far as now, I'm not a quite the expert on Shia Islam, and I'm not sure if fatwas hold or not upon the passing of the person who issues them. I do not think that it is still holding, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I have heard several analysts who I respect very much argue that it is now a matter of time before the Iranian government does choose to pursue a nuclear weapon once again because of the simple fact that we've just given them no incentive not to. And you look at what happened to Ukraine when Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. You look at what happened to Libya when they gave up their nuclear weapons. And it's not hard to see the calculus there. However, the Iranians, even in their latest proposals and in the certainly if you listen to what the Omani foreign minister said um, just before the war started, February 28th, have been willing to give up what remains of their nuclear stockpiles. I believe what remains of their enriched uranium. Trump calls it the nuclear dust. It's like this weird thing that he uses to get around the hypocrisy of saying he blew it up in last year. But from what I've read, they do still have some amount of enriched uranium, but they do not have nuclear weapons. And
I've seen that.
it's a it's a difficult position that we've put to answer that question, which would have been much easierly better answered through diplomacy. But good question.
It was. Teresa?
Hi, thank you, Ethan. My question, I hope, I think, of course, you might edit down your answer or whatever. I had not known that Golden, pardon, of Maine, put up his own War Powers Act, etc. I did not know that, but I did know that he voted and I'll call it the Maine War Powers Act for lack of any other better term. What was the difference between these two and actually the time difference too? I understand that he's not running, so that for re-election, that often gives people a little freedom to vote or pretend to vote their hearts unless they're trying to get a consulting job later on. Um, but what was the difference, and does that give room for a new one that'll pull more people in that has just tweaked a little bit or something. But what was the difference in content?
Well, so I believe Golden did not introduce one. He had co-sponsored
Oh,
another one that Josh Gottheimer
okay.
introduced, which
Oh,
which really caught my eye because Josh Gottheimer is famously, quite hawkish on Iran and very, very pro-Israel.
oh,
So we as activists were paying attention to that and asking, lawmakers about when is this Gottheimer bill going to come up, and I had spoken to several others who had confirmed that some of the other Democrats who had voted against recent Iran war powers resolutions were getting on that bill, including Golden um, and a handful of others. We had heard from uh, from leadership staff that it was going to be brought for a vote last week previously, and then it didn't. And now it's murky as to when the next House War Powers vote is going to be. Um, these are questions that y'all should be calling your congressman about, like
Yeah.
really consistently. Like when, and it's very simple. Like when's the next War Powers vote going to be? How can we help you with it? We will come to your office and thank you. I've had people calling. We've tried every strategy about these War Powers votes. In the Senate, it's been a much different story. The leadership has very consistently brought new ones up for votes like every week, sometimes multiple times a week, including from Adam Schiff.
Right.
So it's a good question, and we should keep asking it to to our lawmakers.
Okay, thanks, Sean.
Hi, Etan. Thanks for a very informative talk. In regards to which pressure points to apply, which might be most effective, wouldn't, even if the war powers resolutions were to pass or Bernie's resolution, couldn't Trump simply veto them, especially in light of his, his close bribery by the Israel lobby? And therefore, funding the war could be a more effective pressure point, or asking Congress not to fund the war, because that's not something that Trump could veto or yeah. So like to hear your comments on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, the answer is yes. Trump, he could veto it. I doubt on any of these measures that we would get to a two-thirds majority, that would be veto proof. But um, I think very important to focus on the basket of swing Republicans on this, and even if these votes fail or pass and then Trump vetoes them, the act of having lawmakers have to vote on them consistently and then return for town halls and be asked questions of their constituents, week after week, especially as we come closer to these elections. I think Trump does care about that, and it's it's one of the levers of political power that we should use. But the supplemental is I agree is the big fight where Congress really can limit Trump's options with this moving forward. Um, and especially in light of Trump's big beautiful bill, his cuts to healthcare and to his doging of federal workforce, employees and the tariffs and gas prices. I do think the supplemental fight, um, and with his, utter failure to accomplish, stated, especially early goals of this war, asking for total surrender from the Iranians, calling for the Iranian people to rise up and change the regime. Um, you know, I think the supplemental is a really important, probably the most important fight for political power, but not the only fight that we should be waging because it's not there's nothing actually to organize around it yet. They've been very it's very cagey. Like we don't know how much they're asking for, when they're going to be pursuing it. So in light of that, we have to do we still have to do some, what we can, and that is, war powers resolutions, war crimes investigations, and the JRDs.
Great. So we'll hear from David and then back to Adelaide.
So at the Senate hearing last week, there was someone from the Congressional Budget Office, and he could barely keep a straight face. But I mean, we've heard $1 billion a day, and which and he said 25 billion, but could barely keep a straight face. We're being lied to, and we haven't gotten the bill yet for this war. And at the same time, they're asking for $1.5 trillion, military budget. But unrelated, I wanted to do a shout out to Adam Schiff, because he was the last one who introduced the War Powers Act, and he also signed on to limit funding to Israel. And he's one of the people I think has changed his vote. He's come a long way in the last 2 years, and I'm gonna take some credit. I like to think that pressure. I don't know if he had a moral conversion, or it's just he's understanding the political winds, and he's changed, and it's demonstrated to me that our letters mean something. So, and that's more of a comment than a question, but
Well, no, I'll reshare that letter. I believe you all signed this letter. A number of peace action chapters did, but you're precisely right. We had organized a letter condemning Schiff's no vote last year on the JRDs, and him shifting is was shocking to me during that vote, and really encouraging, and especially in light of Schumer being, voting no.
Right.
And in New York, there was a number of activists who got arrested outside of his offices in lead up to the vote. People are furious with Schumer,
Yeah.
for many reasons. But Adam Schiff is really one of the next most prominent Jewish, leaders in the Senate, and
Right.
You all should, especially on the supplemental fight, should be getting in touch with his office and asking, what are you planning to do with this? How can we help you? We don't want we're already paying our we're already paying so much. Why do we have to pay for this?
Yeah, there's also a clear link between a War Powers Act and democratic institutions. I mean, that just, one person should not be making these decisions based on his whims. That Congress needs to be asserting some kind of leverage, some kind of power here, when we go to war, when we appropriate more funds for wars.
Right. So there's a comment here in the chat that says, so he's really shifty Schiff. I guess it's one more reason for Trump to call him that, and it's kind of a reason that we prefer and honor and so forth. And so, but yeah, I think. Go ahead. Yeah. So David, thank you, for pointing out that yes, we can take credit for this because we've been at it. We've been calling and writing and emailing and so forth. So that's great. Annaloy, you're back.
Okay. I'm going to make a comment and then a question. I think one of the many commentators out there that there are, one of them, it might have been Colonel Larry Wilkerson. I don't know whether people know of him, but or one of the Larrys. I don't know, but if I understood them, they said that the War Powers Act itself was unconstitutional. And then and I can't tell you, I don't remember what they said, but they explained why it was. So I wonder if you might have a comment about that. And the second thing is, I'm wondering, Etan, if you have seen the Lego videos that has been produced by Iran that are absolutely brilliant and holding up a mirror, and uh, they know us better in ways better than we know ourselves. But I'm just wondering if you've seen them and what your reaction to them is.
Well, I can't, I don't quite know how to answer your first question. I know that to the first point on war powers, I, I certainly know that the War Powers Act has produced a ton of unintended consequences, right? That it was initially, really drafted to constrain the executive from launching into wars at all, but it's written, there are several provisions written into it that allows some action in the event of an imminent threat. And presidents through the years have argued in funny, weird ways to start wars, and certainly in this example about the imminent threat. The language of Rubio and Hegseth and Trump has tried to frame Iran as an imminent threat, but no one actually discredited that argument more strongly than Rubio in the initial days of the war, when he very openly said that we did this because we knew Israel was going to attack Iran, and then Iran was going to attack in retaliation, so we just attacked. And the logic of that is like saying my my brother is going to drunk drive a car, so I'm just going to go crash his car, instead of stopping him from from driving. Um, but 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 anyhow, but to the second point on the Lego videos, I have seen them. I there was an interview recently done by Ryan Grimm from Dropsite News of with some of the creators of those videos, and certainly they are being produced with the backing of the Iranian government. But the creators of those videos are actually independent creators who had previously been, very critical of the Iranian government, and perhaps uh, part, partook in advocacy, even critical of the government. But things have shifted, and I agree, they are, they do hit, they hit pretty well. Um, Certainly, when you compare them to the propaganda, I mean, they are propaganda. We should watch them in the lens of propaganda.
Right.
But when you compare them to Trump's propaganda, which is all, he posts these videos of us blowing things up, often to music. And it's just not that appealing to most people. And and yes, the Iranians have, and it's really it's this younger generation of people that have grown up there, and are very literate in the internet and understand the power of those arguments. And yeah, I've seen them. They are impressive, but I do watch them through the lens of propaganda.
Okay, let's go to Mike.
Okay, I'll stand in line with everyone else. Yeah, speaking to what Anna was mentioning, these are sources that I definitely recommend. Most of these people appear on like either Judge Napolitano's website or show. Lawrence Wilkinson and Larry Johnson, both retired high-end intelligence professionals and people that had basically briefed presidencies. So these are people who do know a great deal, and it's things they probably still cannot say publicly, but the fact remains they can give you a lot of good background. I believe what they're describing is what's called just war, meaning even if Congress says, yeah, let's go to war with somebody, the UN was set up for a reason. We executed the people from the Third Reich, not because it was just bad guys generally, but the reason we condemned and executed them was that for starting a war of aggression, meaning there was a war for no overt reason. You were not attacked. You were not about to be attacked, and yet you commenced a war. And that was basically the reason they were hung. And I kind of brought that up because I've been in the military. I went to military police school, and they did discuss war crimes and what's a hospital. When could you not and could conceivably attack a hospital? You know, all of this was covered. And yeah, you just don't say we want to start a war, and if Congress says it's okay, we can do it. No, you know, unless you want to abrogate your responsibilities in the UN Charter and the Nuremberg principles and all those things that we have signed on and we're legally bound by, including our leaders. And but doing it as he has done it, he is eligible to go to the criminal court and be basically condemned and possibly executed for what he has done. You know, this kind of dropped like, you know, like a expensive china in Kevin Mullen's office. I mean, it was not something, you know, our president is eligible for execution based on international law. You know, we've done it. Imperial Japan for execute, you know, for acts of genocide in China, executed. We've done it. So, you know, these people think they're fast and loose. They don't want to know anything about history, not that they could even read it. Probably have the book upside down like he had his Bible upside down. But the fact remains, it's real. You know, these are facts. People that come after us will say, what was wrong with these people in 2025? They couldn't read their own documentation. They don't know their own law. You cannot start wars based on they just might do this. You know, they may have weapons of mass destruction. We've been through here already. Iraq war, illegal war.
Thanks,
George
Mike.
W. Bush,
Okay.
you know, he could be sent to jail for that war. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
So while we're waiting for someone else to raise their hand or whatever, to the extent somebody might, I'll mention that now it can be told that four of us on the board were in the office of Representative Kevin Mullen on Friday. Um, and we were, one of the things we did was thank him for voting, not only voting, but co-sponsoring the latest war powers resolutions that had come along. He knows, he sees what's wrong with going on, and he's saying not one more penny for the war, and certainly no to the 1.5 trillion for being proposed for next year's military budget. So, you know, he's somewhat with us. And he's with us on that. We also lobbied him. One of our people lobbied him about supporting certain bills having to do with well, the Block the Bombs Act was one of them, not wanting to send money to them, and we're still trying to get him to co-sponsor that, and a couple of other related bills. Ceasefire Compliance Act is another one. The UNRWA Emergency Funding Restoration Act, and we're still trying to get him going on that. But he's expressed concern about what's going on with Iranians and the Palestinian people and so forth. And we're just trying to, as far as the Palestinian issue, we are trying to get him to walk the talk. He did also co-sponsor a bill having to do with peace on the West Bank, or, you know, treating people better on the West Bank. So he's got that in mind as well. But he said he was open. It's hard to tell, but at least we're there with him.
Those are
If
all
there's anyone
great.
else, please chip in, but I'll have something to
Sorry,
say.
Etan was about to talk.
Okay.
No, those are all great bills for him to be pushing, and if you can continue checking in with him about the supplemental, you know, landscape, that's wonderful, Ron.
So, Analoy, then Mike.
Uh, yes, the names of those bills that you just mentioned just went right over my head. I'm wondering if you can list those bills that you mentioned, and also, yeah, because it sounds like that you just put up a bunch of stuff I don't know about, and it would be a good idea to follow up with Mullins. I haven't called his office lately, so that'll give me
This is a
another
good
task to
reason to
do.
do that. Yes. Yeah, I will put them in the chat momentarily.
And I think last time uh, we were able to save the chat in some kind of way so we could go back and look at all the comments and references.
Yeah, you can do that yourself. Just go to the three dots, and there should be a selection of save chat, and you just punch that, and it'll automatically go to your email collection there.
Okay, thanks for the refresher on that. Yeah, I remember
Okay.
saying that. Okay, we'll do that.
And so you know, we will also be eventually putting this conversation up on our website as a YouTube video. So you can always refer back to it and tell your friends about what they can see and you know what we had and so forth. So here I'm about to put something in the chat that is this is kind of just copied from notes that we took in preparation for the meeting on Friday, which Wendy, who's we don't see, but she's here, presented to him. And the first thing was have the thank you for co-sponsoring the West Bank Violence Prevention Act. I couldn't remember exactly what that was. And then the next three bills are also there. So let's put
Okay,
those up. There they are. Um, so Mike.
Okay. Yeah, we did bring up the matter of his campaign donations from AIPAC. And obliquely, he basically we told him, you know, you have a safe seat. Is there any particular need to go scouting around for funds and money? And he was saying, yes, we all hate that. All of us hate it. And I said, well, yeah, I heard the Republicans do as well, having to dial for dollars, constantly looking for campaign donations. And he said, but a lot of this is coming unrequested, basically from super PACs. If you call that built-in corruption that they had, that technically they are not allowed to cooperate with the campaign for the individual, and thus they can send in money. Uh, I can't believe there's no strings attached, but the fact remains the money is sent in unrequested, and that he says, well, he knows he has a safe seat, and the rest of the Democratic caucus understands that and expect him to bring in excess money for them, for the rest of the other campaign people that may not have such safe seats. And so he says he is obliged to pass that money along. So I kind of dodged that bullet. But the fact remains, it's an enormous amount of money. And I said, well, you know, you could always repudiate it and say, you know, either not accepting it, or you're not going to use it, you're not going to keep it, or what have you. But he said a lot of it he felt was out of his hands in a sense, which seemed a bit, we couldn't take it much further than that. We can't can look over his shoulder when he opens the mail, so to speak. But the fact remains, we did bring that up, and it is a corrosive. And he said he was with us on trying to get rid of Citizens United, which is a total corrupting piece of legislation, or I should say, adjudication by a Supreme Court, allowing them and allowing blind contributions. Nobody knows where it came from, and God knows if you know exactly what the strings are that are attached. So he said he thinks that's a terrible thing. As Obama is, to his credit, Obama did roast the Supreme Court in public during his first administration for having okayed that type of campaign. Like money is speech. Money cannot be speech. You're buying the microphone, as they said in Texas many years ago. But the fact remains that's the law. We're stuck with it. And we did bring it up, so I just want you to know we did hold his feet to the fire, and he tap danced quite nicely around it. But there you go.
Well, on that point, I'm perhaps y'all have heard of them, but there is a group called Track APAC. Um, I I've been very impressed with them actually. They've responded to criticism of their methodology and updated it recently, um, because they were founded to call out politicians who took APAC money. and they do a great job of that. They do it on social media. They endorse candidates who commit to not taking AIPAC money in particular races. They are, I think it's a relatively small organization. It's like a few, progressives. Um, and they were criticized because they overcounted donations. They double counted donations. They included money from J Street in their calculations at times, which, regardless of what you think of J Street, they are not AIPAC.
Right.
And they've supported blocking weapons to Israel, for instance, and AIPAC does not. But I've actually been very impressed with their organization. And if you are looking for ways to create additional, good trouble pressure on representatives, consider, sending them a message on social media or something like that. I've not been personally in touch with them, but I've seen them as very active, and I was quite impressed to see them respond to criticism of their methodology and be very transparent in that process.
Sean.
Hey, Mike, thanks for getting back to us on that, holding Mullen's, feet to the fire on the APAC funding. Even if he dodged or danced around the issue, it's good to let him know we're watching. We're keeping an eye on that. So yeah, good job there.
Okay.
And it's even better, frankly, a better example to have someone who had previously taken AIPAC money to then switch, publicly. I think that's a really strong example. And we've seen it from several members of Congress. I believe Valerie Foushee is one. She's like a rather centrist Democrat from one of the Carolinas who, from because of pressure from constituents,
Yeah.
came out and said, "No, I'm not going to take it anymore."
Well, it's
So,
becoming toxic because you realize it may be money from Americans, but the fact remains it's money for a cause to advance a regime of a different nation. And like I said, it's not even doing Israelis good as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's just destroying their nation. But
mhm.
they seem to be behind it. But the fact remains, it's not America first. I think Laura's got her real live hand up.
Yes, because I'm the host, so I don't have a raised hand. And so my question, kind of to Ron, when he was at that meeting, Ron, we were at that meeting, Ron, he said there was a bill that passed the Senate and it went to the House, but Speaker Johnson wouldn't hear it. And what bill was that? Do you remember that?
I do not remember just what it was.
Mhm.
It was something that was reworked, and they were hoping to bring it up, and he chose to use some procedure to not bring it up. But yes,
Yeah.
I can't remember either exactly which one it was. But
I couldn't remember if it was a
yeah,
war powers act. They actually
it's in
passed
that
the Senate and
that
then
or in
had
the
to go
nature of funding of some kind, maybe.
It
But
could have been.
yeah, but we had so many things going along. But he was saying the right things. I have to say that. I mean, he was cooperative. He hates having to scrounge for money. He doesn't want it, and but he's expected to pass it along, is what he was saying. That he's actually supposedly a funding positive element in the Congress, that he's expected to help the others that aren't so well thought of. Who knows? We're not going to stay out too long tonight because Etan certainly needs his rest. But anyone want to tie things up a bit for us? We haven't got anything set up for this month later or for next month yet. So any ideas, let us know what kinds of topics. And
I'll mention that Licardo has been a supporter of the war powers resolutions that have come along. Sam Licardo, the other representative who has constituents in San Mateo County. It's good to know that. And it would be good to try to get a meeting with him too. And I've tried, and just getting the time to try again, and we'll see. We might just have to bring some literature to his door or something, to his local.
yeah, I think it's Stephen and Sean are both his constituents, correct? Licardo constituents, yeah. So that's two people right there, and I'm sure you'll probably get a few more
Yeah.
folks from
Yeah.
Palo Alto or some if you can swing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron, I can email his office and see if he responds. But
Okay.
yeah.
I can send you suggested text if you want. You may not even need it, but
Yeah. No, please do that, and then
Okay.
I'll email his office and see if we
All
can
right.
get a meeting with him. So yeah.
I have one more question
Yes.
for
We'll take yours.
Etan. I missed your introduction. But I'm just wondering if you could say a few more words about your organization.
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to. So I work at, and I'll share our website if anyone wants to take a look. We actually hosted a panel recently. I'll share our website and I'll share a link to this panel if anyone really wants to nerd out and
Yeah, that'd be great.
and take a
Nerding
look.
out, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
But my so yeah, my organization, we're called NIAC, the National Iranian American Council. We were founded in 2002 by our one of our co-founders is Trita Parsi, who is now the co-runner of the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. He has left NIAC. I've actually never worked directly with him, but I do know him. NIAC's an Iranian American civil society organization. Our core, we're nonpartisan, we're a nonprofit 501(c)(3). We also have a 501(c)(4) NIAC Action, which allows us to endorse in campaigns for office and to lobby directly. And that was started in 2015, so a bit of a newer development. But we have always tried to advocate for Iranian American political power, for peace and diplomacy, for civil rights of all Americans, um, for immigration, equitable immigration. We are very active on issues of visa processing and asylum cases and ICE detentions of Iranian Americans. There are many of them, and on human rights, we maintain a human rights tracker newsletter reporting on uh, human rights stories from Iran. We also maintain an Iran Unfiltered newsletter that tries to break down domestic news. We're frequently accused in very bad faith of being supportive of the Iranian government. We are not supportive of the Iranian government. Many of our members, including, I'll share a link to the panel. This is a recent panel we held on Friday with our community council advisory council members, including a wonderful scholar named Behruz Gamari Tabrizi, who was on death row in Evin prison in Iran
Wow.
in the 80s.
Good thing they didn't succeed there, right?
No, they didn't. No. Yeah, and former Ambassador John Limbert, who was one of the hostages in the 79 hostage crisis.
Oh,
He's a wonderful man. They're really great people, and I'm very grateful to work at the organization there. Yeah, check out that panel, check out our website. We do what we can.
And feel free to donate to NIAC, folks.
Yes, please do. We have
Etan,
quite a small budget, and our APAC does not like us. They have a much bigger budget.
Etan, do you get a lot of Iranian Americans who have family and are used to going back and visiting family? Because my best friend is married to someone from Iran, and he's always gone back and visited family, and it's just painful, And even though, with this immigration thing, and they're in Minnesota to boot, I worry about all the time that that being married to American citizen won't be enough in this era of horror.
Well, I would say the vast majority of our volunteers, core volunteers,
Mhm.
do go back or have gone back through most of their lives. Maybe some haven't gone in recent years, but mass majority do go back, have family in Iran.
Right.
It's difficult for them to keep in touch. The internet is blocked out and severely restricted in Iran. Unless someone calls you here
Uh-huh.
on a
Uh-huh.
landline or they can get access to a VPN, it can be difficult. I myself, my family left in the 70s. We are Iranian Jews. They all left to Israel or
Yeah.
to the United States, and I've traveled to Israel several times, so I've not been able to go to Iran. Although uh, I still have hope for us to reestablish diplomacy with Iran in such a way where I can go visit and can go back with my dad.
Because the one thing in those Lego, the one thing that theme that really stuck to me in those Lego uh, propaganda things was we're people, and we are. We're all people here. You know, you come from another country, you still have your family, you still want to go there. There's other people here. We're just all one community, whether we're from Mexico, the Middle East, Africa, it doesn't matter. And we have those connections, especially in these modern times.
Great note to end on. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you.
John, we really appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. And I'll get
You know,
in touch with you about speaking. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Bye-bye.
and
Thank
thank
you.
everyone for your time this evening. Thanks again.
Everybody.
all take care and
Thank you.
let's keep it up.
Okay.